Hey everybody, welcome back to the Combat Chain. I'm your host, Patrick. Talishar testing doesn't count unless you can prove your opponent won a Pro Tour, but also never lose in Talishar, even if it doesn't count. Shaw, with me as always, is my co-host, Adam. I'm here to chew gum and beat Stroop waffles, and I'm all out of gum. Philip Chuck. Adam, how you doing today?
Hey Pat, I'm good. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't see the mid. I still don't know what to call these. I'm just gonna grow with like middle name. Yeah. I didn't see the one that you had actually written for me in advance, and so the moment I saw it, I kind of chuckled a little bit. I don't know if I'm as confident about that match as you are. Of course, we now in a funny turn of events, Yuki may accidentally have found out what I'm playing because she was in a chat that I forgot she was in, and I made a joke about it. But I don't know what she's playing, and because I'm not supposed to know, right? And I'm genuinely certain that she's gonna approach it from the sense of like act as if she's not, she's going to be as good about it as...
I don't think the stakes are as high that she's going to be like, you know what, I'm going to tech the shit out of this deck and I'm going to do everything I can. Before we get too far, Adam, what exactly are we talking about to the audience before we just talked about you fighting Yuki?
Yes, I guess we need a little more context. We are talking, in fact, about Fab Team Cup being put on by Fab Foundry. It's essentially the third season of Team League, but we're making we've talked about that part a bit. We just needed to tie the loose ends together. So this week, Team Combat Chain is paired up against Team Stroop Waffle. Team Stroop Waffle having some notables on it, of course. Yuki Lee Bender, Zane Johnson's on it. I believe Oliver Fye.
Ian Zhang.
There we go.
Calling Singapore competitor Ian Zhang, I believe.
Yeah, so a pretty stacked team, and I, of course, got paired up against Yuki Lee Bender. So that's going to be I hope to put on a good fight and make it a saucy match. Of course, I've been working more on content.
Believe in yourself a little bit.
I've been trying to get some reps on the deck.
Yuki the fight of her life.
I've been trying to get some reps on the deck that I'm going to play just to like know what I'm doing, and it's a deck that I'm familiar with, but at the end of the day, I'm more focused on the content creation and on running the league on helping run the league right now, because I see so much potential for all that realm of things. So I'm not necessarily I'm waiting till closer to ProQuest Season 3 to really start like digging into testing, and I'm just letting myself like absorb things through osmosis for now, I guess, be part of conversations and learn where I can without like taking on more than I can really stomach right now.
That's fair. And I believe we will be on the FTC channel on Wednesday, which would be tomorrow night of this recording, and then Friday night.
Yeah, well, the Wednesday one's still up in the air. We're trying to figure out the logistics behind it. That's going to be a last minute stream, unfortunately. But yes, we can say we're going to be up on Friday. We can confirm that my match versus Yuki is going to be live streamed. That's going to be at 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern. I think Pat's going to be doing some commentary for that. We're still figuring out some of the logistics for that event as well. We kind of these streams come together very quickly because we have to wait on like the on the pairings at the beginning of the week, and it's not really till Monday that we can start planning, and then we got to reach out to players and figure those logistics out, and it's really a moving piece, or a very moving thing.
Yeah, and lately we've had to really drag people kicking and screaming onto the stream. So,
not quite. People have been good about it too. It's just things haven't lined up for everything with some of them, unfortunately.
Facts. Speaking of content, I put the Arachne deck tech video up onto the Combat Chain channel. So if you're interested in the CC version of Arachne, take a look. It's about a half hour long, but I try to go into my build for it. It's already evolved. We're trying to find like a good, a serviceable build. I think we're as good as I think we're gonna get. I don't know if it's like it's not an S tier hero, and I'm okay with that. But it's fun. I'm having fun playing it, and that's all that really matters, I think, there. So on top of that, we had a Battle Harden in Hong Kong. Blitz. I love Blitz. Blitz Battle Harden happened, Adam. So we got the top 8 of that, and the winner is a person named Powerful Dixon. I love the names they use in Hong Kong. But Dash on Powerful Dixon on Dash Blitz won the whole thing. We had 2 Dashes, 3 Reinars, 2 Icelanders, and a Prism taking the top 8 of the Battle Hard in Hong Kong. I think Pulse Wave Harpoons and Berserks all over the place.
It's the future.
Yes, and we'll dive into a little bit. We'll dive into that in a little bit with our guest this week, who we'll bring in right now. Our guest this week is a legend in the Flesh and Blood community. He is the Calling Sydney 2019 champion. He was 17th in the Calling Orlando. He was the Australian national champion in 2021. He was 14th in Pro Tour New Jersey. He was top 4 Calling Sydney 2022, Calling Singapore Day 2, Pro Tour Day 2, Day 2 Pro Tour Lille, 14th in the 2022 Australian Nationals, and 16th at Worlds, enough to get into the Dev Challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, one half of the Arsenal Pass podcast alongside Brett and Patrick, the most objectified man in the Goliath Gauntlet, Hayden Dale. Hayden, welcome to the Combat Chain.
Thanks for having me, and take a breath and take a drink.
Oh man, it's I really don't have the lung capacity for this right now. I'm still under the weather. But Hayden, thank you for coming on to the program.
No worries.
Yes.
Thanks for me. I thought you were going to start listing my sort of, maybe my academic credentials as well on top of that, or the time I ate some strip waffles, because I'm a big fan of strip waffles. So Adam, I'm pulling for you to go big and win this week, but I also really like strip waffles, so I'm a bit torn.
What is a stroopwafel?
Oh, you know what a stroopwafel is?
No,
Really?
I don't.
Okay, in all fairness, I didn't know what a stroopwafel was until I started dating my partner, who is Dutch, and that's when I learned what a stroopwafel was. So
Okay, you're right.
it's like a little
not a very
kind of
cultured
like
person.
waffle pastry type thing. Like it's like two kind of waffly things with like a little bit of filling, and it's usually like kind of caramelly and.
Okay, all right. So the waffle isn't too far off from what it really.
Yeah,
All right,
to some
that's
extent.
fair.
Waffle cookie.
Yeah,
Waffle cookie. Good.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I know waffle
Woofy.
cookies. Oh, woofy. I don't know. All right.
Woofy sounds like Woofy sounds like something. Yeah.
Hayden, I gotta ask you. You fly all over the place. You're in Australia right now. You were just in the US. You've done it. You've done that trip. It feels like a half a dozen times this year. What's it like making that commute from Australia to the US? And are you tired yet of doing this?
I'm probably a little bit tired at this point. I think I've been in the past 12 months. I think I've been 3 or 4 times, and then of course with Lille. And I went to Singapore on the way there. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. I'm a pretty good traveler, I would say. Like, I don't find it too hard. I'm pretty good with time zones and jet lag and stuff. So I probably I get it a little bit easier. But it is difficult. It's time. It takes a lot of time. It's probably the biggest thing, to be honest. So getting to PT New Jersey took like a day, basically 24 hours. West Coast for San Jose is a bit easier. It's just one direct flight. So that's not as bad. Florida, November last year, that was about 24 hours as well. So it is a bit of travel, and it takes time. You lose a day basically either side, which is kind of the tough part. But you get to go and play Flesh and Blood. So I'm excited to take a break though, sort of November, December, January, and then see what next year holds.
Excellent. Now, of all that travel this year, any particular highlights come to mind. I'm going to tie in our first community question to this. So Flake, Matt DeMarco, friend of us all, asks, has Hayden changed his mind about the proper drunk Mario Kart strategy, or is he still convinced that sculling a beer to start is correct? I feel like there's more to that than that question on face value.
You're just getting straight into it with the flesh and blood after dark questions.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna get raunch all over the place here.
So, I mean, first of all, so many highlights from the year of travel. The 5 or 6 trips that I've been able to do. It's just been, to be honest, like the big sort of like ones that would be the ones that really stand out to me is meeting a lot of the people that I'd spoken to for so long. I met Brendan for the first time in person 12 months ago. I got to meet the friends I'd made, via doing this sort of thing, right? I met Adam in San Jose. You don't get to do this sort of thing without this travel. So being in Europe, I spent basically almost about 3.5 weeks in Europe, post and pre Lille, doing a bit of sightseeing in France with my fiance. So like that was a great sort of highlight to actually have a holiday on the end of it as well. The story that Flake, of course, he wants to dob me in immediately, is referring to is at the after party for World Championships. They had it was at this like gaming kind of room. Room is an understatement. Gaming warehouse basically, and they had like Wii's and Switches and stuff kind of around, and you could like hire them out. So my friend that I was staying with from New Zealand, Jason, he's like, we're going to play Mario Kart. We're playing Barrio Kart. And I was like, okay, you have to tell me what this is. Basically, you have to finish a Mario Kart race and finish your beer, but you can't drink and drive. That's the rules, basically.
Oh, boy.
And I went over to Flake and Brian Gottlieb, and I was like, all right, guys, what do you think? I've never played this before. Here's my strategy. I'm just going to immediately go back to my college university days and just going to scale this beer immediately, and then I'm just going to go. Because in theory, if I'm at the back, I get the best upgrades, right? Like this is my strategy if you've played Mario Kart. So I thought this would be a great strategy. Turns out not a great strategy. I definitely came last. But my thought to Flake's question is, yes, I'd do the same thing again, but I'd just get better at Mario Kart. I think the drinking was okay. The Mario Kart was abysmal. So
That's fair. I haven't played Mario Kart in like, I call it 20 years, and just so happened to pick it up for the first time on Switch this weekend. I'm horrible at it.
We can have a battle then, see who's worse.
Oh, absolutely. There's a race to the bottom for sure. Hayden, you are one of the most prolific players in the game, consistently competing at high-level tournaments, and you also have one of the top podcasts and YouTube channels in Flesh and Blood. Gauge your success in 2022 competitively and content-wise. Did you meet your goals in both? How much did one potentially conflict with the other, if at all?
It's a big question. And that last bit's really interesting, I think, because it's something that gets talked about a reasonable amount, and it's definitely a balance, trying to find time for content creation and trying to play, effectively what is at a high level if you can. In terms of, maybe if I break it down, like the podcast and what we've done with Arsenal Pass is kind of just taken on a life of its own. We never really had plans for what Arsenal Pass would be outside of just me and Brendan were talking about the game a lot. We thought we could, put this into a podcast form and share our experiences and some of the things that we were finding as we started to go to events, as organized play started to happen for Flesh and Blood. And then it just kind of has evolved, especially this year. We started we started mid of 2021, and it's been kind of the last 12 months in particular have just been exponential sort of growth, and we've branched out into, a lot more YouTube content with deck techs and interviews of players and, a lot of different things. And that's been such an awesome experience. And the experience that sort of allows us to have with interacting with people at events and things like that. I really enjoy the content side of it. And so I don't know if we necessarily had any goals and if we've kind of succeeded in those goals. I think we've kind of set little mini milestones for ourselves. Like we'd love to, do something with LSS, which we did this year. We did sort of a video series. Actually, we did 2 video series with them, which was a really cool experience to do. We knew we wanted to have interactions with certain people. And then also probably what has driven the YouTube stuff has been the competitive side. We never knew if we'd continue to be competitive players. And if I was to gauge my success on, you asked about the competitive side of the game. Like I'm really happy with the year. I mean, I would have loved to have won a Pro Tour, but you can't do it all, right? And I think starting the year winning the Australian National Championship was like the best possible way to start the year. And then traveling to play these events, I was really happy with my finish at PT1, less happy with PT2. I think I finished like 70th or something, like an 8-6 record or something. And then World Championships, like I would say I never really go on with like a set sort of goal of where I want to be, but I know I want to do well. And going to the tournament, I felt really good about the event. So I felt like I could top 8. I felt like I could potentially win if I got the right sort of stuff to go my way. And, I think the goals changed. Like on day 2, halfway through day 2, I'm like, wow, I'm like 1 win away from top 8ing this event. And obviously it doesn't like quite go that way. There's an infamous game on stream where I get beat down by a plucky Reiner. But, I think over the year, like if I was to gauge the success of both Arsenal Pass and sort of the competitive year, I feel really good about it. I don't know if I have necessarily ticked everything off that I want to do. I'd love to top 8 a Pro Tour. I'd love to go back and make another crack at a national championships. I just want to win something again, guys. That's what I want to do.
Right. The national championships in particular seem to be quite the litmus test benchmark setting kind of affair. Team Dragon Shield obviously kind of swept it in 2022, and that was kind of like they're moving into national season into world championship season. It seemed like that's kind of a goal that they had set there. And you had done a similar 2021 nationals really put both you back into the competitive spotlight, and then that Viserai deck, right? It was that you just blew that up completely once that happened. Just everyone looked at that and went, "Oh yeah, it's good." Turns out, you talk about the infamous game on stream. You are in. It was round 16, the last round of Swiss. You sit down, you see Reinar. Walk me through what goes through your head when you see barraging beatdown into Alpha Rampage. What's the mindset there?
I think my first mindset before even that is like, I hope I win the Dyro, because I've played this matchup quite a bit, mostly from the Reinar side actually. I'm a big Reinar fan, and I wanted to play it at Worlds. I just felt the matchup into Ultim and potentially change just wasn't good enough. But the Icelander matchup I know is favored for Reinar, and when Zach kind of drops that start on me, to be honest, there's not much you can really do. I just kind of like have a little chuckle to myself, and that's the kind of start of the game. I don't feel like I can't win it at that point. I just know that I'm really behind, and I just have to play as tight as humanly possible to find any edge to get back into the game. I know what it kind of looks like. It looks like me coming back in with a really strong attack on my first turn, something like a Wounded Bull, and then it looks like me having some disruption elements to hopefully be able to stop him being able to go. Hopefully he goes wide and I can hypothermia him, or I can land like a Channel Lake Frigid, and just be able to, basically I know at that point though, I need to end the game in the next two to three turns. So I need to find a combination of damage and then an in-game. But that's literally all I'm thinking about, is like, how can I still win this game? And then, next turn it kind of proceeds to be another sort of like quad intimidate and so on and so forth. And yeah, my view is just play the game until it's over. And I mean, Zach played well. He knew his deck inside and out, and he said to me, he's like, been doing this all day, just bodying Icelanders.
It does seem. I love Reinar and Blitz. I have shamelessly jacked several of your Blitz lists and run them myself, and it is fantastic. Especially into Icelander.
Well, I could have a quick shout out to you though, because there's a video that's probably, by the time this has gone out, up on the LSS page, where I play an Arachne deck that is basically your, I think it's like 2 or 3 cards different to your Arachne deck. So we've swapped lists, so I have to give a big thank you to you as well.
Hey.
I'm so excited. I'm happy that worked out. I'm excited to see the video.
Yeah, you're gonna like it, I think. Maybe.
I'm gonna. All right.
It's a big game.
I genuinely didn't think that you'd pick it. I'm glad you did. I'm super excited to see how it goes. All that good niceties. I'm gonna have to we're gonna walk back a little bit in 2022. You spent a lot of time being competitive. Your competitive testing team is consisted mostly of yourself, Brendan Patrick, and Sasha Markovic, and tangential people around. In May, we had a bit of a controversy, and I'm going to ask a community question, and then we'll walk through here. Dustfim from the Discord asks, We seem to hear a lot from various podcasts, ourselves included, who have talked to members who tested with the AP team for PT1 regarding the surprise Kano switch from Hayden, Brendan, and Sasha. It would be good to hear Hayden's side. Massive fan of Hayden, BT Dubs, says Tesfin. So this is the question we asked Brendan, who deflected masterfully. All right. In May, Arsenal Pass came to Pro Tour New Jersey with Kano, a deck that was revealed to be a relatively last-minute audible for the team. That pivot to Kano had ramifications for players that can still be felt today. And so my note to add today is we have interviewed both Matt Folks, who cited this instance as a major influencer on how he prepped for Pro Tour Lille, and Michael Hamilton, who mentioned this as a big reason for joining the Wolfpack, why joining the Wolfpack was the right move for him. Given the power of hindsight, is there anything you would change about the approach the team took in selecting the Kano deck?
Yeah, it's a big question in terms of, because I think there's a lot that goes into the discourse around this, I think, and probably for some context, because you talked about like the team that we have, and I think probably for some context of how testing generally looks for myself, I can give it from my perspective. So in 2021, I was testing a lot with Brendan and Dante Delfico out of Canada. And at that point, we added one of my good friends, Dan Mackay, to sort of our regular testing group, who's in New Zealand. And then eventually, like Zach Barn from Team Covenant and Tim Bunn, his brother, and a couple others joined. And we had a bit of a bigger testing group that we tested on a US time schedule, basically, heading into Orlando, so US Nationals in 2021. Post that, what kind of ended up happening for me is that I couldn't really commit to that time anymore. It was not a good time for me. Testing on US time, just being on the Southern Hemisphere, didn't really work. And sort of heading into my nationals and then post my nationals, I kind of decided I was going to do my own thing at that time. So 90% of my testing that I actually do myself is with Dan Mackay. He's my number one testing partner. I think he's one of the best and most underrated players in the world, to be honest. He's a phenomenal play tester, and he just has like the best mindset for it, I think, in the way he approaches games. He doesn't tilt when he tests. He doesn't have an agenda when he tests. He just wants to find the best possible information when he tests. So, and he's on my time zone, and he's one of my good friends. So it makes it super, super easy. So when we kind of changed to this, when I kind of moved away from like a whiting testing group, I said to Brendan, look, I can't do this testing sort of time frame. It doesn't really work for me. I think I'm gonna kind of do my own thing with Dan. We might look at a group that's based here in Australia or New Zealand that works on a time zone. Brendan was cool with it. He was like, yeah, you should do whatever works for you. And then sort of heading towards PT1, Sasha was coming back into the game, who's also on a similar time zone to me. And it kind of made sense that we'd like link up as a wider group. So we had, trying to remember, so myself, Dan was still primarily doing our testing, but then there was Sasha, Brendan, Michael, and Matt, who you just talked about, and Roger, who's Michael's friend, who were kind of, we had a bit of a wider group there. And then basically what kind of it looks like, and this has been the same all year. So for PT1, PT2, PT3, Worlds, I think I've played maybe 6 or 7 games against Brendan in testing for that, and maybe 10 against Sasha. I actually don't really test with the group, unfortunately, because of time zones. Me and Dan test on our own schedule, and then we might connect up for conversations and things like that to work out what's happening. So PT1, what the kind of testing looks like for me is that there's a group of like what I call like a North American cell and like a Southern Hemisphere cell. So North America, I think Matt ended up testing on their time zone primarily a lot as well. So he would I think he was getting up at like ridiculous times, actually, like 1 a.m. or something to test with them. Yep. And then Sasha, Brendan, because Sasha didn't have a job at the point, he just left LSS, and Michael, I want to say, and Roger, I think a lot of the time as well, were testing. And then me and Dan would test in our evening, and then sometimes there'd be like a little bit of overlap, or we'd come back on things. I was actually, the deck I worked on the most for that was Dash. My whole intention for the event was to play Dash. It's the deck I tested through pre-ban, even post-ban. I thought it was super powerful. I mean, we saw the power of it at Lille, like it made top 8. Nothing changed. It just that Starvo and Chain had Living Legends. So that was the deck that I was kind of working on. And then, yeah, I mean, I guess you know the story like of the pivot. I think the 5-7 days before, Brendan and Sasha revisit the Kano deck. I don't know if everyone knows this, but the Kano deck was actually something that Brendan and Sasha had developed pre the Viserai banning, the Scalata banning. It was like the number one deck kind of on the radar for those guys. I don't know if Michael liked it as much. I think Matt thought it was pretty good. I think Michael kind of wanted to play Ultim or something at that point. And then I know they revisited that. So I mean, what I can say from my standpoint, like what I did is I changed the deck the day before, and I know some people have doubted that. They're like, "Did you actually change the day before?" Yeah, I did. I had Dash in my bag. I had a Blitz Kano deck. I had to go and find cards the morning of. I asked my friend to go and help me find some cards. Luke Badger, if anyone knows who Luke Badger is, to help me go and find some cards to finish making the deck. Would I do anything different in the situation of like what happened? Yeah, I think so. And I've talked about that with Michael Hamilton in particular, someone that I feel is one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met and a very nice guy, and someone that I wanted to get my point across about things that, have been said from by other people.
Sure.
And we've had that conversation, and I think that's water under the bridge between at least myself and Michael. But yeah, I at least like, you can feel free to ask more pointed things, but I don't really have too much else to say other than like that was kind of the process for me. And it's really hard, I think, testing on different schedules and at different parts of groups and stuff, I think adds a lot of complication to these kind of things. And it's something that I've tried to reduce in my personal testing moving forward, because it's really hard to have this discourse and know what people are doing, whether people are testing with other groups, people are testing only within this group, and what expectations are.
For sure. So I suppose to expand on, like, not to beat a dead horse there, but the impression I got from Matt and Mike was that there was a pretty good consensus on. I want to say Matt was saying that it was chain, right? It was the group going into PT New Jersey was on chain. There was exchange of information, right? There's test data, everything that was leaning towards leaning towards this result. And because the impression that we get is that testing data transparency ended, right, abruptly, and then ... Kano comes to New Jersey. Now you've done a very good job of I'm not saying you were lying. I believe you. It seems like a very reasonable story, in explanation for that. But was there more to the testing dynamic? I guess that, like, if you're separating yourself on your own, I guess, but you would have kind of a pulse on the situation for the surrounding group there. Was there some turmoil outside of deck selection that was happening?
I guess it's interesting. I guess it's perspective, right? So you talked about, like, I think you said Matt had said about chain. Mm-hmm. It's not so like I was saying, I was on Dash. Like, for instance, like Dash was the deck that I wanted to play and work on. And to be honest, not many other people were interested in it, right? So I kind of did more of my own thing. I know Michael and Matt were particularly big on chain. Dan was just doing the testing. He wasn't going to that PT, so he was just in it with me on Dash. We were literally just playing games of Dash and trying to work out that build and what it should look like. And then, so Brendan and Sasha, I think, were kind of floating between a lot of different things. The way that, like, Sasha works when he tests is, like, he will test everything and he will, like, take it to the limits. And then the day before, he'll be like, okay, this is the thing. It's like, it's a little bit frustrating testing with him sometimes. I talked to him in this about Lil. Like, the day before in Lil, like, we didn't have a deck list. And that's a really difficult position to be in unless you have a beautiful mind like that. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult because I think it's, like I say, it's perspective, right? Like, obviously that's a feeling from Matt, is that he thought, a lot of people are locked on chain. I thought, I'm playing Dash. People aren't as interested in it. Mm-hmm. Chain was probably my default backup at the time. 3-4 days before, I know I check in with Sasha and Brendan. They're, like, testing this 9 belittle chain deck, which is, like, designed to beat the mirror. They're moving through iterations of stuff. It's like, there's definitely check-ins, and I can only speak from my interaction because, like I said, I wasn't in that primary cell of them testing day after day after day. I'm only checking in every once in a while, but there was definitely communication up until close to the PT about what people were doing. I was on a call with Michael and Matt like 5 days before, like, exchanging information on. I'd been playing a lot of chain the week before, thinking I might default, and sort of feeding back what I'd been finding about cards like Tome of Torment and like Shadow Puppetry and stuff like that. So I think there's still discourse. In terms of that iteration of Kano, I mean, the deck is 9 cards different to what the deck was a month before, in terms of the change of it. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I was trying to understand.
No, that you've done more than enough. I'm all right. I have beaten the dead horse. Thank you for humoring us. That thus concludes the saga of PT New Jersey for the combat chain. All right, moving on. We saw your Arsenal Pass partner somewhat sunset his time as a competitive player as he took up casting at Worlds. His highest profile gig doing so yet. You yourself have dabbled in a bit of casting in the Goliath Gauntlet and other streams over time. Where does Hayden Dale go from here? Do you continue to climb the competitive ladder, or do you start to lean more into fab-related content and casting? And is there a walk-away point in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it might not be so much climbing as it might be sliding down the rungs. I don't know. I would like to play competitive Flesh and Blood for sure. For me, it's a question of logistics and time is really the tough thing. So you talked about travel at the start. It is tough, and it not only is it not ideal, but it does take up a lot of time just to travel, and that's let alone before we start thinking about things like testing. So I would like to. It really depends. I was hoping we'd get some sort of organized play announcement probably before December to make some decisions about what I wanted to do next year around playing. If there's a Pro Tour in Europe, for instance, I'm saying this now, but it could change. I'd really struggle, I think, to make it to that Pro Tour. Again, it's just the hardest to travel to. It's the most expensive, and it takes the most amount of time. But US is probably on my radar. So the first Pro Tour of next year looks like it's going to be in North America. I would say more than likely, I'd say like I'm 80-90% to attend that right now. So we'll see what happens. I've done some casting. I really enjoy it. I don't know if it's quite for me. I don't know if I'm quite the archetype for casting. I think I would like to be involved in coverage potentially at some point, but it might be more of I don't know if you've ever seen if you've ever watched any Magic the Gathering Pro Tours in the past, but they used to do this thing called the news desk, right? Or they'd interview players and talk about do deck techs and stuff in between rounds. That sort of stuff I think is really interesting because it's a lot of the content I want to do myself for Arsenal Pass and for YouTube channels and what we do put out as content. So that stuff's really interesting to me. But casting, I've done it a few times. I do enjoy it. I just don't think I'm as good at it as other people. I don't think I can bring across the things that someone like a Brendan or a Brian Gottlieb or a Flake can, depending on their role they're filling. So is there a walk away point? Depends who you ask. If you ask my fiance, there probably is, I mean, it depends. It depends on what happens next year. I'm enjoying playing the game. I've got some PTIs banked. I can have the luxury of choosing which Pro Tours I do or do not go to. I don't feel pressured to go to them like maybe I did this year. I felt like for my profile, whatever you want to call it, for Arsenal Pass and to play the game I loved, I felt like I had to go to everything. I felt priced into it. I really don't feel like that anymore. So my probably target on the wall next year is go to at least one Pro Tour, play in any callings that are in the Southern Hemisphere is probably my kind of target right now.
You bring up if the boss says so, right? Both David Rood and Chris Ray, right? Both are unofficially officially retired for basically the same reason. Right? They gave about a year and a half, they gave organized play in 2022 everything that they got. They hit that mark, and then they said. Or it seems like their families were like, okay, you did it. Now that's enough. Is that a discussion that has taken place, or you kick that can down the road a little bit?
It's probably a discussion I have with myself where I instigate. My Devon, who is my fiance, we've been together for a very long time. She's known that it was part of the package deal. It was I play cards, right? It was always part of the deal. And she's been super supportive of all sort of especially with Flesh and Blood and what I've wanted to do. So we've definitely had that discussion, but it's more, to be honest, it's more for me about career. So I have a job that's reasonably demanding. It requires a lot of travel and stuff as well. And I do want to make sure I get to spend time at home and doing the things I love, like getting outdoors, spending time with friends, going out to eat, all these sort of things. And I felt like this year I definitely had to sacrifice a lot of that to make time for testing and to do the things that I wanted to balance with Flesh and Blood and just day-to-day life, right? Just work and just, cooking dinner, whatever it is, there's this big balance. So to be honest, it's more just, what I feel I have the time and the sort of the bandwidth to do next year. And at the moment, decision is not sure, but I know I want to keep playing. And it's you get that needle in your arm, right? It's so hard to say I'm not going to do something or to walk away. Chris, David, are they going to stay away? Who knows? It's really hard to stay away from the game once you're into it, I think, and both very good players. So, they could easily walk back in and do it.
Yeah, Chris is already in the test servers already.
Of course, yeah, sounds about right.
Playing stuff.
I'll just test. Just help out. I'll just test.
Right, just be the gauntlet deck.
Yeah.
Be the gauntlet deck. All right. Goliath Gauntlet. During the Goliath Gauntlet pregame show, you were objectified. You were consensus the most attractive player in the tournament. So congratulations. It was unanimous. It was so congratulations. How does it feel to be a sex symbol in a trading card game?
Well, I think it's a bit of an achievement because Caleb Van Patten was also in there as well. So I don't know how I've snagged that one, but I'll take it. I mean, I don't really know what to say, to be honest. I'm just me, you know. I just
you know, and that's what you bring to the table, right? And that's what it's the natural charisma. We have a community question tied to this. Speaking of sex symbols, Sean Hill on Team Combat Chain and on the Discord asks, does Hayden agree that Adam Philipchuk has the indisputable best mustache in all of Flesh and Blood?
Do you know what? It's a great mustache, Adam. You do have some competition though. You've got some competition from the likes of like Simon Denning.
Yep.
You know, Taylor Morrow at some points has had a great slog on his face. 100%. I don't know if he still does. Yeah. So I'm gonna say for now, yes, but you know, I think it's you've got some stiff competition.
And I'm the first to acknowledge that, you know, Simon Denning, is it Philip McKay in your...
yeah, but he just grows hair. He'll grow a mustache in like a week. It's kind of unfair.
He's one of the gifted ones. But nonetheless, like, you know, he's got a great mustache. What I said, Simon Denning, Taylor from the Attack Action podcast. And I don't want... It is very much part of my goal to have the quote-unquote best mustache in Flesh and Blood, but I don't want to just have the title thrown around. I want to see it be like earned, fair, and square. And if it does go to one of those other gentlemen, I 100% like that. If through fair play, if that's how the chips fall, I think that is how it should be. And at the end of the day, I just want it to be. I don't even know, how do we go about like fairly decreeing this.
Look, I don't know how we got this far into the conversation.
Well, I'll be honest, Sean.
This is for the sake of the audience.
Yeah, Sean's the one who's really. Yeah,
we
are
here now,
here.
Right? So you do cosplay, right? If there's a cosplay contest, we got to have a stash off. We got to have it on. Yeah, stash off.
Every pro tour is crowned.
High stakes stash off. Whoever loses, that's it. Only one stash remains.
That is very high stakes. I mean, like I would, if there was a stash off, I'd pull the mustache wax out and like really do it up.
When was the last time you didn't have a stash? When was the last time you took the razor to the full?
I actually don't believe it's been over 2 and a bit years. I think I've had this mustache longer than I've been playing Flesh and Blood, now that I think about it. Huh.
All right. All right. Hey, look, Flesh and Blood. Let's talk about a card game here. We live in a post-Dynasty world right now with upgrades and wrinkles added to a number of classes, as well as a completely new hero. Hayden, we know you love some Rhinar, even when it's rolling you at Worlds. I'm sorry. Which leads us to the next community question. Darth Prentice / Greg asks, he would love to know if Hayden has dusted off the Ravenous Meat Axe to test its synergy with Berserk in Rhinar. Says, I know it's not optimal, but it is a romping good time.
Well, it's not very romping, is it? It's more ravenous, I would say. But I haven't with Ravenous Meat Axe, but I did mess around with a bit of a Berserk combo deck the other day, trying to see if I could deal 30 plus damage on a Berserk turn with Bloodrush Bellows, and it is doable. It does require Berserk plus Bloodrush Bellows, and you do need to play things like Skullhorn, I think, Beaten Trackers, Barkbone Strapping, and you have to play a lot of 6 attacks in your deck, right? So, yeah, I mean, Berserk is like a real card. It says draw a card on it, and it says draw multiple cards on it potentially. So that is like something that can be broken in Flesh and Blood. Like those are the kind of cards that always jump out to me as like ones that you should try and abuse. There might be this kind of like Ravenous Medax deck that he's talking about, that Greg's talking about, that you can just, when you draw Berserk, you can guarantee at least some value off of it. So you raise the floor, because Berserk has quite a low floor, I think, but a really, really high ceiling. So maybe there's a deck that's somewhere between, you can pop off with a combo, but maybe when you just draw this card, it can be useful. So I think there's something there. I just don't know. I don't know how good it is.
There is, it is not in the notes, but there is another community question that relates directly to this. What would it take for LSS to print a blue 6-attack brute card? It seems like it's off limits, and James White has gone so far, I believe at Worlds in the Q&A, had talked about how he does not want blue impactful attacks like printed in Flesh and Blood, and Macho Grande and Thunderquake were Guardian selections towards that end there. What needs to happen to get that? I think we need one more.
Yeah, so that's do you know, I actually asked this question to one of the devs at Worlds. So we, during the dev challenge, we actually did a bit of a Welcome to Wraith draft afterwards, and I held up Blue Wrecker Romp and I said, how do I just get another 3 of these in my class constructed deck? And an unnamed dev said, go away. So I think the issue with it, if I was to start with that, is that it adds consistency, right? Like you said, James talked about the power of blue consistency and powerful cards, right? Macho Grande, Thunderquake, Glacial Footsteps, these kind of cards that Guardian, in particular Oldhim, have access to are really strong. We've seen them do a lot of work, but that's in a Guardian archetype, right? It fits the archetype. It is true to what the Guardian's trying to do. Is a blue resource card true to what Brood is trying to do in terms of flavor? But that's one thing. But then go beyond that and you talk about the consistency of which that adds to the deck. It might just be too good, to be honest. Like, even if it costs, you don't even have to be able to play it. It could be like a 6 cost, discard 2 cards. It comes in for 6. Like, it doesn't even need to be in any way balanced. It would just be that the printing of a 6, the printing of it being blue and it defending for 3 would be good enough. Now, I think one thing that you could probably get at a generic slot is potentially, swing with massive tree, an upgrade on swing with big tree, costs 1 more, but has effective 1 more power at each step. So you could have a blue 6 that doesn't defend. That's probably what you could have. That would probably be balanced. But yeah, I would say I think we'll see it in the future, but I think it's something that probably they're wary of doing. I think I have a sneaky suspicion that the dev team have thought about this and thought it's probably a bit too good.
That's fair. There seems to be a lot of crazy cards coming out from Dynasty. I will be the first to admit I have not had the time to watch parts 1 or 2 of your Dynasty review, so those answers may be in there, but I don't know yet. But we just talked about Berserk. Pulse Wave Harpoon apparently is changing the landscape for Dash completely. Looming Doom and Deathly Duet for Viscerai, and Iron Song Pride showing up for Dorinthia. How many of these cards for real? What cards in Dynasty are for real, are really going to change the landscape of Classic Constructed and Blitz here, and which ones might be a little overhyped?
Dynasty's a friggin' great set. I just got to say, I've been super impressed the more I play with cards from Dynasty and start to look at them. They're so different from Everfest. Everfest felt like, a lot of the rich got richer, right? It felt like that a lot with Dynasty, with Everfest. And the cards I didn't think were particularly interesting either. I don't think Blue Auras are particularly interesting, to be honest. And I've played a reasonable amount of Illusionist. I don't think Ravelin Runeblood is a particularly interesting card, for instance. I think a lot of the cards in Dynasty are really interesting. Something like Looming Doom. What a card. Like, that card is so much depth to it. It's really interesting. I think these cards, what Dynasty's doing, right, is you look at it. Icelander, Oldhim, Briar, Fi basically get nothing from this set. Maybe you could argue Fi and some sort of different build could get something, but basically get nothing. What Dynasty's doing is helping bring these other classes up to potentially being able to compete. Now, will it be good enough when we get, all things said and done, to ProQuest season and Pro Tour 1? Will these cards be enough to do what maybe they seem like they're doing? Not sure, but a lot of these cards are definitely for real. I mean, one you didn't talk about is Hanabi Blast, right? I think that might be the most powerful card in the set, to be honest. I think that even more so than Pulse Wave Harpoon to me is what's pushing Dash to be a competitor for one of the best decks in the format. But yeah, like you said, Looming Doom, that card, not only really interesting, but I think is really good. It adds a lot of, it's like really dynamic card as well. I don't think it's massively crazy powerful, but it's really flexible. It's a blue, a defensive 3, it's a non-attack action. It can turn excess rune chance into long-term damage. It can help you push through damage against defensive decks as something like Viscerai. Ironsong Pride is just a really cool, interesting card that has a lot of play around to it. So yeah, I think these cards are good. I'm trying to think about cards that maybe seem a bit overhyped. Definitely Duet is like okay, I think, but like that's a card that I think might be a little bit overhyped. Maybe Savage Beatdown for Brute, maybe a little bit. Skullcrack. There you go. That's an overhyped card. There you
go. Yeah. I didn't list, and we haven't talked the Katsu card. Well, the ninja cards, right? The combo Cats. Is Cats a thing? Cats looks like Benji to me. You block. It seems like if you block Tiger Swipe, you're in the clear. But some people have been pulling off these, I don't know, the 45 damage, triple Art of War type turns. There is Katsu. Is that what it needed? Was Cats?
I'm not sure. It's definitely different, and it definitely gives you a different avenue to attack on. That's different to the combo kind of traditional lines that Katsu has. It's probably more powerful for sure. Is it good enough to be better than just playing Fi? I'm not sure. Like Fi can have those turns, right? Fi can have the double Art of War, the Art of War, searing kind of turns. So yeah, it's cool. Like you say though, block out Tiger Swipe. Am I kind of in the clear? I'm not sure. One thing I think people could look at is utilizing some of the items and potions potentially to set up even bigger turns. But yeah, it's cool. I really like it. I like what Crouching Tiger is as a card. As this, like, it's not a token, but it's also not it's a card that disappears. It's quite interesting.
It is. It is very confusing initially about whether or not, because looking at it, I had a discussion with my group, and it was like, Phoenix Flames didn't end up in the deck at first, and then is there any reason to put a Crouching Tiger into the deck? I don't even know. I don't know if that's
not that I can think of.
No, I can't think of one either. Arachne, a new hero. It's fun. We just talked about it. I posted a deck tech on the Classic Constructed earlier. I mentioned earlier. What's Arachne to you? It seems like it's a incomplete but fun hero with some pretty drastically like poor matchups that probably can prevent it from being, I don't know if it'd be competitive in the sense that you'll sleeve it for, Pro Tour.
Arachne's better than I thought. I'll give it that. Spider's Bite as a weapon has been super impressive to me so far. I thought that weapon on face value was, I knew it wasn't just a bad Kodachi, but it did have that kind of feel, and the patterns of play probably weren't as obvious to me when I first looked at Arachne as a hero. But I do kind of agree with you. I think it's this kind of hero that is going to need more support to be competitive or super competitive into the future. I think we'll see it show up in ProQuest season. I think we might even see it make a couple of top 8s. I don't necessarily think we'll see it win anything, but it is a lot of fun. It's cool, and I think right now it can even be a meta pick. I think into decks with those disruption elements and the abilities written on those cards are going to be really relevant, especially Spider's Bite into like heavy attack action decks. I think Arachne can be viable. I've played into it. I've played with it. It does have some power. If I was to place it in the kind of like tier system of where things might be, it feels a lot better than playing like Azalea prior to Dynasty, for instance. So
that's true. And I think that's where I'm at as well. I do like. I'm not gonna throw it in the trash, even though apparently it can't beat Dash if Dash goes to pistol, but that's enough for some people to just throw it right in the garbage. But I'm not quite there yet. Tomorrow, let's say in the hypothetical world, tomorrow you have a pro quest to attend. What are you sleeving up? What are you sleeving up, and if different, what do you consider the best deck in the format at this moment in time?
Yeah, two very different questions, I think, actually, right now. I think I'm sleeving up Dash. It's something I've played a couple of armories over the past few weeks, getting back and playing some games after a week of a bit off. Really like it. I think it's super fun to play. I actually think it's really difficult to play Dash. Firstly, to build a list that can do well into people trying to potentially fatigue you if you're playing this more aggressive Hanabi build, or if you're playing with items, like what does that look like into things like Fi and Icelander, etc. So I think there's complexity around building it, but also playing it as well, and what items you must play and how you play out certain lines, which is really cool. I really like that. What I think is the best deck, I don't know. I have a feeling that Fire is probably still just the best deck. I think it was for Worlds, to be honest. I think it was probably it had the best matchup spread. Iceland is still very, very good as well. And, but people are talking about that more. I've seen it on sort of like Twitter and stuff. People are like, people have forgotten about Icelander. It's still so good. Yeah, it is. But I think even more people have forgotten about Fire. I'm seeing no one talk about or play Fire right now, but it's, I think it might just be Fire.
That's an answer I like. I'm sick of Icelander. I am just, I don't know what it is. I have trouble playing against it. And it just seems like if you're at 15 life and everyone's equal, they're winning anyways, and they're about to lethal you, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah, if you're an Icelander player, just cover your ears for a second. But I find Icelander quite boring to play. Like, I don't mind playing against it. I just find playing it. It's just I don't find it very enjoyable. I don't think the play patterns are very enjoyable. But Michael Hamilton, I'm sorry, mate.
He's one of those like he loves those numbers, right? It's all a numbers game, and that's all it is. It's unsexy numbers, and as long as he gets those numbers right, and that's right up his alley. There. Okay, one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Non-flesh and blood related. It can be about anything. What is something you'd like people to know about you that they don't know now?
I wish I thought about this one. Good question. I feel like I've used this one a bit. I'll use something different. I am really into overnight oats.
Okay.
And I think if you haven't really tried overnight oats before, you should. I've just gotten into it recently. You should get into it. You can do some really fun stuff with overnight oats. Tasty, pretty nutritious, reasonably healthy, and I don't know. I enjoy the process of making them. So there you go. Not the most exciting, but I'd recommend it.
Now, what is we're going to talk about this? What makes overnight oats different than my regular oats that I can get? I don't. What's the difference here?
I think mostly because you're not cooking, so you're letting them soak in all the whatever your choice of sort of liquids you are. So I like to use a little bit of milk, maybe coconut milk, like low fat cream cheese. Berries, so like a berry compote, which will kind of like soak in as well. So yeah, I think that's the main difference. You let them in the fridge, you have to cook them, you just leave it overnight. You can like kind of meal prep them. Yeah, I don't know, it has a bit more of like a desserty taste, I would say, which I quite like.
All right. I had no idea.
Same.
It's like cold brew oatmeal. I get it steeped over 12 hours in the
it's like the new, it's like the millennial cold brew. There you go.
Yeah. All right, that's fair. All right, hey, we did it. We got through it. That's what we got here this evening. This is your opportunity to plug your stuff. Where can we find you? Tell us your links. Tell us your social media handles. What do you got, Hayden?
Oh, no problem. I'm good at this one. So you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Fian_Dale, like the tunic and like my last name. Always pretty active on Flesh and Blood Twitter. And I'm one half of Arsenal Pass. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, all podcast platforms for our weekly podcast, sort of more competitive related Flesh and Blood content. And then we do a lot of deck techs and occasional gameplays and some like other videos where we sort of see fit. So that's kind of what we do. And you can see me at hopefully Pro Tour #1 because it sounds like it's going to be in America. So
I want to thank you for coming on to the program. I know there was I am doggedly ill right now, so I try to push through it. I'm sorry if I was a little raggedy, but I do want to say that Arsenal Pass and you and Brendan are our main inspiration. The combat chain exists because Arsenal Pass exists. We are inspired by you. We look up to you. We try to model you. We try not to plagiarize you, but we do. You are. I joke that you're kind of like our parents. So you're one of our dads. So we appreciate everything you do for the game, for the community, and thank you for coming on and like I said, being an inspiration to the combat chain.
Very kind words, and thank you so much. We love what we do, so it's cool to get to do it.
Absolutely. All right, Adam, we can plug our stuff now. The Combat Chain is on YouTube. You can find us if you search The Combat Chain. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to know when the latest episode of video is uploaded. We are available on all audio platforms wherever you stream your podcasts. The best way to support us is through our Patreon. You can find us at www.patreon.com/thecombatchain and can subscribe to us there. It's a single tier, and it helps us tremendously to keep the lights and mics up and running. We'll have to shout out our patrons here: Clark J, Eugene C, Devin, Tyquius, and Arcfire. Thank you very much for your support. You can find us on Twitter, of course. The channel's handle is @thecombatchain. You can find me at PatSmashGood, and you can find Adam at FomTooleryTCG. Now, Hayden, we have one more small piece of business that we like to do with our guests before we call it a show. We do a little outro here. I say until next week, and then in unison, if you would humor us, we would all say we're closing the combat chain. Nice and hammy, and we say it in unison and harmonious. It's going to be great. Is that something I can ask of you this evening? Awesome.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you again, Hayden Dale of Arsenal Pass, for coming on to the program. And Adam, I think that is going to do it for us this week. So, until next week,
we're closing the combat chain.
Perfect.
That's fairly smooth.
That's the best. That's a professional.
It's so hard. I was waiting for your delay, and then I was like, I think you have like half a second delay, so I'll just wait and then I'll go.
It's all of us are like a half second off too, because I always think he's off in my ears, and he's like, it's perfect.
That's how it works. Yeah.
He's the source.
That's the fun of it, though, is it's like the awkwardness, and it's like everybody trying to like, hey, do we go now? Do we?
It is. All right. So on 3 or after 3?
Yeah.
But hey, we did it. Thank you. Thank you
so much
for doing this.